Welcome in to the Southeastern 14 podcast. We are recording this on Thursday. We've got a really special guest with us today. It's Ben Beaty. He is the Assistant Director of Communications at the Southeastern Conference. He is the primary guy over baseball. And as you guys know, the tournament just around the corner. Ben, we really appreciate you joining us today. Very excited about having a tournament again this year. I know you guys are too.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, and we are excited, especially after last year not being able to have the tournament, and so we're looking forward to a good week in Hoover next week.
Ben, just tell us a little bit about the tournament. I mean, I think most people know the format and all those things, but obviously the pandemic had changed some things, and you guys are always changing things with the tournament every year. You're adding things. It's a very family-friendly event. I've only experienced it as a media member, but you look around on TV and when you're there and you see all the stuff that people are doing, really, you guys in the city of Hoover put on a fantastic event. What's it going to look like this year? And maybe what are some of the things that'll be different this year than from past years?
Yeah, so this year, we're operating at we announced a couple of weeks ago how things are going to look this year in regards to capacity, and that's something we're still kind of working through. We haven't set percentages on the capacity for the Hoover Met next week, and we're still evaluating the circumstances around COVID daily and looking at that. We still have 5 more days till the tournament starts. That'll be an ongoing process over these next few days. But we introduced the Fan Fest a couple of years ago in the Finley Center, which is adjacent to the Hoover Met, and it allows for a lot of activities for young fans, especially attending the tournament. And although there will be no Fan Fest activities this year, there will still be a limited number of fan entertainment activities that will be held outside the Finley Center throughout the week. So that'll look a little bit different this year than it has in years past, but we still think it'll be a fun time for everyone.
Ben and I have been to that tournament many, many times, and there's a lot of people in the South who are, I think, discovering SEC baseball. You've seen that at Tennessee this year for sure. I think the SEC network has really helped things. I think that the popularity of baseball has really taken off. I want you to talk about that and what you guys are seeing in terms of growth in the game, and then fill people in a little bit about what makes that event in Hoover so special, not just watching it on TV, but just the being there part.
Yeah, you're right. It really is a special event, and it does speak to the growing popularity of SEC baseball, and of course the success of the teams. Has a large part to do with that. When you look at, a couple of years ago, I think it was during the tournament, and you watch the games on TV, you see the score bug, and you have the seeds next to the team, and somebody was asking the question, is that the seeds or national rankings? Because a lot of times those are, pretty close to the same, and so the success of the programs has played a large part. And then, of course, the city of Hoover and the Alabama Sports Council, who we partner with and managing the tournament, have done a great job, and just a consistency from year to year. Coaches and players talk about their goal of making it to Hoover, and when you've made it to Hoover, you at the very least have an outside chance of continuing on your season in the NCAA tournament for most teams, especially. And even if you're fighting for that last seed, you're still trying to get to Hoover to play your way deeper into the postseason. So, and this year is no different. When you look at the 4 teams that are still battling for a spot in the tournament, and those already in, whether they're trying to, bolster the resume for a host or a national seed or whatever it may be. It's an exciting time for fans and for the teams as well.
Yeah, when the question comes up, are those tournament seeds or national rankings? I think the answer is yes. And
Yeah.
I mean, what a position to be in, right? I have followed baseball really since about '04 in your league, and it's just been crazy to see how good the programs are. But I mean, this year has taken it to a new level. I've tried to explain to people how special this league is in terms of just this year. I mean, it's always special, right? But this year, you've had stretches where you had the top five teams in the national rankings were all from your league. No, granted, it's a little different, right? Because some other leagues aren't playing baseball out of conference and it becomes more difficult to compare league to league. But my feeling is that that's pretty close to right because the SEC this year is just loaded. And even some teams at the bottom, I made this point. You could see by the end of the week, you could see Auburn left at home. You could see A&M left at home. A&M has got the third longest streak of tournament appearances behind Florida State and Vanderbilt. That's the NCAA tournament. And then you've got Auburn, which the last time there was a College World Series, Auburn was in it. I mean, it is just unbelievable to me how competitive your league is at the top all the way through. And I don't know if people nationally have really grasped that yet.
No, you're right. You think about, you talked about the top five teams in the national rankings, and four different SEC teams have been in that top spot at some point during the season. When you look at Arkansas and Florida, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt, and 9 of our teams have been ranked in the top 10 at some point during the course of the season. And you talked about all the way through. You look at LSU is one of the teams that is playing for a berth in Hoover this weekend. And if you look at their RPI, earlier in the week they were, I think, top 20. Now they may be around 22. And so that just speaks to the strength of the conference from top to bottom.
I want to ask you, I know that the NCAA does its thing and there's input from various people on the committee and maybe outside the committee, but what is it like from the league? Does it have any input in the process? Does it say, hey, we've got a team here that's 11-16 in the standings, but as you said, it was 18 in the RPI earlier in the week. It's 22 now. Does the league have any input or suggested power in terms of the NCAA process?
John Cohen is the athletic director at Mississippi State, and he is serving on the NCAA Baseball Committee. Ray Tanner, athletic director at South Carolina, and both of those are former head coaches, of course, in the league. And he served on the NCAA Baseball Committee previously, so certainly Coach Tanner and John Cohen now, that they're advocating for our teams. We want as many teams as we can to get in. We think that we have a lot of teams that deserve to get in and deserve to be national seeds and deserve to host regionals, and NCAA has already announced 20 possible sites for hosting. So certainly our representatives in that room will advocate for our schools.
There's been some talk this year that the regionals may be more regional than usual. I think the NCAA, at least in terms of the way it is seated, the hosting sites, is tried to achieve more parity, 1-16, and work off an S curve that way. Whereas in past, that they would match up, this region with that regional geographically ahead of time. There's been some speculation that teams might be kept closer to home this year just because of all the dynamics of the last couple of years. Do you have any insight into how that might work in the NCAA tournament process?
I really don't. And of course, they have changed some things because of COVID and the circumstances around that, and announcing the 20 potential host sites, which is not something they would normally release, this part of the season. So that there are some changes that they're having to work through, when you consider the pandemic. But, as far as the geographical selections and how they're going to pair up regionals. I don't have any other information on that.
Ben, let's talk about the tournament itself.
Mm-hmm.
We went through yesterday the possibility of seedings and things like that. And when I say the tournament, I mean the one in Hoover next week. I mean, it's crazy. I don't think anything's been settled yet in terms of any of the four teams will get a bye or in terms of anybody being eliminated on the bottom end from the pool. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we're going into the 10th weekend of SEC play. And you think about the fact that no team has clinched a first round bye yet. No team has been eliminated from contention. There's so many different possible outcomes in this final weekend, so many different scenarios, just in terms of who's going to be seated where, who makes the tournament, who gets a bye on Tuesday. So it's really shaping up to be an exciting final weekend as we head into the series Thursday night.
I know this is an issue every year. You're always going to have some things that you're looking ahead and saying, man, this is going to be pretty dicey and tough to figure out. But have you ever had one quite like this where almost nothing was settled heading into the final weekend?
I was trying to think back to the previous tournaments, and I really can't think of a time when there's so much riding on these final games of the season. We have seven games Thursday, 7 Friday, 7 Saturday, and every one of them will have some bearing on seedings and who gets in and who plays Tuesday, who doesn't play Tuesday. So no, I really can't remember a time when it's been so wide open going into this final weekend. And we've talked about the strength of the conference, and I think that's just another example of it.
I say this jokingly, but when Alabama-Vandy got rained out in Game 3, I would not blame you for doing a little bit of a dance, because that was at least one thing that was made a little bit easier. Like, unless there's another rain out there, those are two teams that can't tie anybody.
You're exactly right. That does make the tiebreaker scenarios a little bit less complicated when you think about that half game difference for Alabama and Vanderbilt. Of course, like you said, unless there's another rain out this weekend that affects that. But you're right, it does make it a little bit easier trying to figure out who would win a certain tiebreaker and what team is sliding into what spot into the tournament. When we talk about seedings, it really affects a lot in terms of even so much down to what hotels these teams are assigned to. So if you're assigned a certain seed, you're assigned to a certain hotel, and so it's even hard to plan for that until all the games are played this weekend. So there's a lot at stake for sure.
What is that process like when you're sitting there as all the results are coming in? You're trying to figure out the tiebreakers, and say you got 3 teams tied for a spot, and you got to look through all the criteria. Like, did these teams all play each other, or and all the things that go into that? Are you sitting in a room with like 3 or 4 other people? Or are you saying like, okay, this is the way I see it? Does somebody double check that and say, yeah, that's the way I see it, and you throw it to another person or whatever? How does that work when you are physically doing that? Because frankly, your job would freak me out, because you look at it and you're thinking, okay, I think I see this right, but did I miss something? And especially we've been working long days and you're tired. What does the physical process of going through all that look like?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're looking at these results, and then you're looking at the standings, and then you're looking at what do the tiebreakers say? What do we have a set of commissioners' regulations that specify what to do, how to break ties, and so there's a couple of other people in the SEC office who we look over this together, and even this past weekend we're trying to figure out, has this team clinched? Has that team clinched? Or what happens if this happens next weekend? And what does that mean for their possibility of being this seed or that seed? So it's a constant a line of communication back and forth among about 3 or 4 people in the office to make sure that the way we're seeding these teams is correct, and the way we've interpreted the commissioner's regulations in regards to tiebreakers is the right way. And you can read over these tiebreakers over and over, and you start to wonder, am I reading this right, or does it mean this? And so it can be a mind twister for sure.
Now, I want to ask you, how long is the SEC's deal with Hoover? How far into the future does that go?
You know what? You got me on that one. I'd have to look back and see. I think we renewed a deal with them recently in the last couple of years, but the years kind of run together, so I'd have to go back and look and see what that is and see how far it goes into the future.
Yeah, I mean, that city does such a phenomenal job with that event, just from the logistics of the parking and the hospitality and everything. I mean, I don't think people understand how fun an event that is to go to unless you've actually been in the stands for it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The parking situation is really good. It's a fan-friendly setup. Of course, the Finley Center that was built about 3-4 years ago that allowed for some more fan entertainment activities to take place, even though some of those won't be there this year. That's been a very popular addition in recent years. We hope to bring that back next year. And it's you're right. It's just become a kind of a mainstay for a lot of SEC fans. They expect to go to Hoover at this time of the year in late May and to have a good week of watching SEC baseball.
So we're talking about the popularity of this event and, how it's become a second Omaha and people take vacations and come to Hoover. And, they've really just kind of bent over backwards, and do anything and everything that, the SEC has asked for. And they should, because they want to keep this event there forever. To me, though, this tournament became really legitimate. And I was looking because I was trying to find out when they actually played. But, when it first came to Hoover, it wasn't really well attended the first time, like in 90. And then, it came back in 96. And then it came back in 98. And that's where we've been for, since 1998. But to me, it didn't really become a legitimate event, a legitimate deal, without Auburn, without Alabama, without LSU until 2005. And it was a rainy Sunday afternoon, and Mississippi State beat Ole Miss 4-1 in the SEC tournament championship game. And I think there were like 14,000 people there. And I was there, and there were a lot of people there. And you realize that when you look at that day and you realize, wow, this is a big time event. I mean, people are going to come for, non-Alabama and non-Auburn and non-LSU games. And I think, to me, that kind of the game that kind of set this tournament apart from everybody else and makes this the event that it is.
Yeah, you're right. You look at the last 3 championship games of the SEC tournament. 17, you had LSU, Arkansas, 18, Ole Miss, LSU, 19, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss. And you can think back to every one of those. It's a packed stadium. 2019, we set attendance records, and of course, weather has a lot to do with that. But I think you're right. It just seems to be growing every year, and the atmosphere that surrounds the tournament in Hoover is really second to none when you think about postseason college baseball around the country.
1999, I was at this. I was working it for Alabama. They beat Arkansas 9-3 in the championship game in '99 and had the largest non-Michael Jordan crowd in the history of the Hoover Met. Actually, the largest Michael Jordan crowd. They broke the record of Michael Jordan's seasons when he played for the Barons and had the largest attended game in Hoover Met history. Just so that people want to come, the RVs, I'm sure y'all have talked about the RVs and stuff, but it's more than just the games itself for the fans. It's the RVs, it's the tailgating, it's the time of the year where the LSU and the Ole Miss and the Mississippi State fans who hate each other, while the games are going on, but they like have a common bond with one another. And I mean, people they travel together and their RVs are together and they play cornhole and they eat gumbo and they fry catfish and it's just a crazy atmosphere. I mean, it's a carnival, it's a World Series, it's an SEC tournament, it's kind of a little bit of everything, and I think Hoover has embraced you guys as much as the league has embraced Hoover, and I think it's a great. I mean, if you've never been, you got to go at least once and hang out for a couple of days, and it's just a fantastic event with all the stuff that Hoover provides in addition to the quality of play on the field.
Yeah, it's kind of what makes the SEC, right? When you talk about the tailgating and the RVs, and you mentioned the gumbo, and we've talked about the increase in the fan entertainment activities in the Finley Center over the last few years, and the popularity that's kind of taken on, and it really is an event that just seems to be growing every year, whether it be those things outside of the stadium or the excitement on the field. It's just it's a fun time for everyone.
Ben, we've been all over the map today with the questions and the topics, and there's so much to talk about here, but I wanted to give it to you as we close the show, just to give out anything about the tournament that might be of interest of fans with logistics or anything else like that, or anything that people might want to know about this event that maybe we haven't gotten to today. So I'll just give you the floor to tie up our loose ends here.
Yeah, no, we're again just looking forward to be back at the Hoover Met. We've talked about it's becoming an annual tradition for a lot of SEC fans to either attend this event or watch the games on television. And you look at the teams we have in the conference this year, and where they rank nationally as the best baseball in the country. And we say this is where the road to Omaha starts. And so we're looking forward to being back at the Hoover Met. Of course, it'll look a little bit different this year under the circumstances around COVID, but we're still looking forward to being back and playing baseball and crowning a champion next week in Hoover.
Well, I'll be down there. Can't wait to be there. This and the NCAA tournament are the two most fun things that I cover every year. And Ben, I'm so excited that there's baseball again. I walk in that place, I see the field. It takes me back to almost being 8 years old again, and the take your breath away feeling when you walk in the ballpark. There's nothing like that event. And I'll just tell people, if you've never been to it, you got to go experience it yourself, just to see all the baseball and the quality players and the teams and just great drama down there. Ben, thank you for joining us today, and I cannot wait to join you in Hoover next week.
Thank you, guys, and appreciate what you do for baseball and the SEC.
All right, he's Ben Beaty. He is the Assistant Director of Communications at the Southeastern Conference. He primarily handles baseball. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the 14 podcast. Barry Allen has joined me today, and Barry and I will be back on Friday to talk some more Southeastern Conference baseball. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 14. We'll see you again on Friday.